Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time we're talking episode 1 of season 5 of The Walking Dead called No Sanctuary. And it's once again been a very long time, but Walking Dead is back and it is, basically just as good as it ever was. Now this was mostly an action episode and a darn good action episode. This was just really a lot of fun in terms of just watching people kick ass and zombies going crazy, some fantastically gory deaths of people. I mean, we got to see a guy having his face chewed off by a zombie that was on fire. I mean, wow. But there were also some nice character beats, and this episode really continues what is one of the main themes in The Walking Dead and is generally a very constant theme in zombie apocalypse stories. And that, of course, is how much are you of your humanity are you willing to trade away for survival? And we're all very fortunate to live here in the 21st century where we have medicine that'll take care of a lot of our diseases. Generally speaking, most of us live in places where we can go walk the streets and in relative safety. We don't have to worry about armies coming in and marching through our towns and looting and rioting and raping and killing and stuff like that. Now, of course, that does happen places in the world, and unfortunately, maybe it always will. But for most of us, that's not really a daily concern. Now, for most of our ancestors, through thousands of years of human history, that wasn't really the case. And what zombie apocalypse fiction is really great is taking that away from us in modern society, seeing what happens when we are thrown back into that more primordial state of being, and watch what happens to us as people. And the thing is, basically, you either toughen up or you die. Now, the question is, how far do you take it? Now, here we could see really 4 kind of examples of the answer to that question in the characters of Gareth, Rick, Carol, and Tyrese. Now, Gareth's philosophy, if you will, is very much stated in this episode, and he is sort of the embodiment of the philosophy of the people of Terminus. You're either the butcher or the cattle, and these are the people who have very much just embraced that idea that either we prey on others or others will prey on us. And the reasons for this are quite clear, and something that people had guessed at for quite some time, that they were genuinely a good group of survivors who ended up being victimized by evil survivors and turned evil as a result. And it's certainly hard to blame them for adopting a harder stance after and Gareth even says that those bad guys came in there and held them prisoner and tortured and raped them for weeks. So it's really hard not to sympathize with them, but they've gone there and killed good people that they could have really built something with. And that's just not the way people live. You can't go around just because you've been hurt by some people once in your life treating everyone as your enemy. Not that there aren't people that do that, but well, how happy do you think those people are? But anyway, so Gareth is kind of the one end of the main extreme. Now the next step down is Rick. Now Rick is basically a genuinely good person, but he's kind of like the people there at Terminus. He's become a victim of people who are genuinely and truly horrifically bad, and that's made Rick take the kill 'em all attitude. I mean, even after they escape, he's like, yeah, we're gonna go back into that place that's exploding on fire and full of zombies, and we're just gonna kill all those guys. Now, thankfully the other survivors managed to talk Rick down and make him see the reason of the situation. But one of the really great things about Rick is, Rick is always just 1 or 2 bad choices away from becoming just as bad as guys like Shane or the Governor or Gareth. I mean, that's what makes Rick an interesting character. He's the hero, but you can really see how one bad day could really change him. if he didn't have Carl and Judith there, then yeah, Rick would either die pretty darn quick. He'd have turned into someone like Morgan, or as I've said, the governor, or Negan, if you're familiar with that character from the comics. And we might talk about him a bit more in a minute. Now, the next step down from that is Carol. Carol, I think, is the person that's really, in this situation, found that balance. Carol is a good person. She's a very caring person, but she's somebody who will do what needs to be done. She, like last season, she killed Lizzie because Lizzie was too far gone. There was no helping Lizzie. Lizzie was now a threat to everybody around her, so Carol did, with tears in her eyes, what had to be done. And again, this time around, Carol just ruthlessly goes in there and one-woman armies the whole thing. I mean, it's TV Carol and comic book Carol are just so light years apart. And then there's that scene where she's talking with that survivor lady, and says to her that, Carol, you could have been one of us. Now, there's a lot of ways that you could have interpreted that, but my take on it is that she's basically saying, if you'd been through what we'd been through, there's no way you wouldn't have become like us. And then Carol shoots her in the legs and uses her as a distraction to get away from some zombies. Which, again, people might take that as being a little bit cold, but there's no way Carol could turn her back on that lady. And, there really was no chance of redemption in that situation, so Carol did what she had to do. And this do keep in mind that Carol knows these are people who are actively trying to hurt her friends, and Carol does not mess around with people who are trying to hurt her friends. So yeah, Carol is somebody who in this situation, as I said, really finds that that balance between being a person, being a human being, and being a survivor, being somebody who will do what they have to do. And then at the really idealistic end of the spectrum, you have Tyrese. Tyrese is even says, to the guy, like, prisoner, you don't know what I've done. And it's true. Tyrese has been through some hard stuff, but Tyrese is, as again the Terminus guy says, Tyrese is a good man. He even says to him that because Tyrese is a good man, that's why he's going to die. But Tyrese has shown, that, yeah, I can hold on to my morality. I can hold on to being a good person, and I can still go out there and tear zombies apart basically with my bare hands and take down people who will hurt those that I care about. Not because I take any pleasure in it, not because I want to hurt people, not because I think everybody in the world is against me. I will do what I need to do to survive, but I will not be a monster. And again, that's the choice when you're in those situations that you have to make every single day. And again, it's one of the themes of the show, and it's one of the themes of zombie apocalypse fiction in general. Getting back to what I said about Negan in the comics, in the comics they recently completed a huge storyline called All Out War. And the real climax of that was one of the great examples I can think of in both the TV and comic book versions of Walking Dead, of somebody having to make a choice as to whether or not to do the humane thing, the human thing, or to do the pragmatic thing, shall we say. And again, I'm not going to spoil it for you because it's a really awesome moment, and it's as I said, the conclusion to a very long story in the comics that I don't want to spoil for folks who are getting caught up. But I think it's really one of my favorite moments in The Walking Dead. In general, it's just a tremendous character moment that really resonates the idea that we're talking about here. Now, other stuff going on with the characters. I really did like that sort of little subtle moment with Daryl kind of running in there, saving Rick from a zombie, sort of showing that Rick and Daryl are bros. And then we also get that scene where they're talking with Eugene. It's like, look, and Eugene's just like, oh, it's classified, and they're like, look, like we know that that this is beyond us, but we just want to hear it. We want to hear what it is that we're fighting and risking our lives for. And then Eugene basically start techs at him, but he makes a good case, and that yeah, I can do this. I'm sure I can put this right. And this is kind of, I think, something that's been needed, because Eugene was not really a very well fleshed out character, and we also got some nice little moments from Rosita and Abraham to sort of get us back on board with who they are as people. I really kind of want to see some more of Rosita as a character, simply because it's been a long while since I've read the storylines where she was really a big focus. So I'm having trouble kind of getting what's going on with her back in my head. I kind of remember stuff that's going on with her from the more recent issues of the comics that I've read. But Rosita, like where she started from, that's a little bit more hazy for me. Abraham and Eugene, they stuck in my mind, I think, a lot better. But again, it's been a while since I read those issues, and I don't want to say too much more about that without giving away spoilers for the comics. But speaking of comics, did you notice that guy that they killed at the trough first, the guy with the frosted hair? I wonder how many of you folks realize that was Robin Lord Taylor, aka the Penguin on Gotham. I did not realize that. Apparently, he had a brief few lines in the final episode from last season. His character is apparently named Sam, and I just happened to be watching the opening credits. Like, wait a minute, Robin Lord Taylor, isn't that the Penguin on Gotham? And I'm like, oh, that dude just cut the Penguin's throat. How extraordinarily ironic. And if you've been watching Gotham, you know what I mean by that. So yeah, new status quo for our characters. One thing I also want to talk about real briefly is I liked that scene where the Carol is go in that room looking at all the stuff from the other survivors. I like that there was not a moment where Carol looked at all those stuffed animals and stuff and just sort of froze or something like that, because that would have been just so cliche. The stuffed animals are there. We see them. We don't need it jammed in our face. We know that, and since we don't see any kids around, yeah, we can pretty much draw a conclusion that the Terminus people are totally cool with killing any children who might have shown up there as well. And yikes. Speaking of children, have you ever noticed that the zombies we see are always adults? We almost never see zombie kids or zombie teenagers. I mean, seriously, like, why do we never see any zombie teenagers? Anyway, now I have a pretty good idea. Well, no, I just fallen flat out know who the black dude in the gear that we saw at the very end was. We're obviously if you watch the preview, he's going to be playing a pretty big role next episode, and I am very excited to talk about him as a character next episode. I think I know the character from the comics, and he's a cool guy. So yeah, definitely excited. Very happy that this show is back. Walking Dead is, folks, this is really, really, really good drama. And also, am I the only one that noticed that just this show and I guess like for example, another show like Continuum are really making some serious strides in making it basically okay to say the word shit on U.S. television. I mean, seriously, that's one of the 7 dirty words that you're not allowed to see on television. But we seem to have backed off on that one. I think piss is more or less okay these days too. But anyway, guys, with that profane note, we shall end things here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Till next time, take care and have a good one.